An icon of the Baseball Hall of Fame, someone who has the same hair color as Hades in the animated movie Hercules, a pair of receivers looking to make some noise, and some mighty badass insert cards from the early 90s wax pack era. Welcome into the Cardboard Critic Sports Card Podcast, home of the Invest in These Cards Now Cards of the Week. Thanks for tuning in. As always, I'm Mr. Hollywood. That's Joe Nasty. And remember, the views expressed in this show are the sole opinions of us and do not constitute professional investment advice. Please do your own research and make your own decisions when buying sports cards. So let's hop right in for this week, starting with our our safe card of the week. And it is Roberto Clemente, of course, the right fielder for the Pittsburgh Pirates. His 1955 Topps rookie card in PSA graded condition. Of course, Roberto Clemente was a Puerto Rican Hall of Famer, inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1973. Taking a look at the grades and the prices over the past 6 months for these cards. A PSA 1 is going to set you back $1,000. A PSA 3, $2,500. A PSA 5, $5,500. A PSA 7, $15,000. And a PSA 9, any guesses what that would set you back, Mr. Joe Nasty?
I can't even fathom. In a 9? No, I don't want to make myself look that foolish more than usual.
$1 million, I believe, was the last sale of a 9. But
yeah,
Roberto Clemente, Roberto Clemente played his entire 17-year career in Pittsburgh, which you just don't see that anymore. It's pretty epic. His career numbers: 317 career average, 240 homers, over 1,300 RBIs, a 359 OBP, an 834 OPS, and he had exactly 3,000 hits when he finished playing baseball. He won an MVP in 1966. He was a 2-time World Series champion. He was a World Series MVP. He was a 15-time All-Star, a 12-time Gold Glover, a 4-time batting title winner, and obviously he was inducted posthumously, unfortunately, into the Hall of Fame in 1973 in a special election because he famously died on New Year's Eve in 1972 when his DC-7 airplane that he had chartered crashed in Nicaragua. He was there on that trip actually delivering emergency relief goods to survivors after a magnitude 6.3 earthquake that killed thousands and left over 300,000 people homeless in Nicaragua. Now, Roberto Clemente is very well known for his charitable work in Latin America and Caribbean countries. And in order to honor that, we do have the Roberto Clemente Award now, which is, of course, given every year to the player who best exemplifies the game of baseball, sportsmanship, community, and involvement and contribution to both the community and his team. Ironically, Roberto Clemente is one of the most iconic players in baseball history. But ironically, do you know where Roberto Clemente actually technically started his career?
I don't know. I don't actually. You're making me look foolish.
Roberto Clemente was actually signed by the Brooklyn Dodgers for $10,000. However, at the time he was signed, there was something called a bonus rule. And this bonus rule was a contract stipulation that was in effect between 1947 and 1964. And the bonus rule basically said that if a signing bonus was a certain amount or higher, you had to keep that player on your major league roster. And if you assigned him to the minors, you would lose the rights to that contract and the player would essentially be exposed to the waiver wire. So what did the Dodgers do? They signed Roberto Clemente and then they optioned him to their farm system. And so they lost Roberto Clemente and he ended up being picked up by the Pirates. Can you imagine the social impact of having Roberto Clemente and Jackie Robinson on the same team?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people really understand how close we were to that, because Jackie Robinson was entering his was in his prime when Roberto Clemente came into the league. I mean, this would have been otherworldly type of legendary teammates.
Right.
It obviously didn't happen, but Roberto Clemente is our safe card of the week in terms of vintage and in terms of humanitarian efforts. There aren't many athletes that do much better than this
No.
for the long term. Your thoughts on Roberto Clemente, absolute legend?
My thoughts on him. What a chap. Jackie Robinson and Roberto Clemente on the same team would have made it legally impossible to hate that franchise, no matter how much money
Yeah,
that they
100%.
spent. Unfortunately, his name and all the things in Pittsburgh with his wall and all that has come under different kinds of articles over the last couple of weeks for a variety of reasons. So this is really nice to bring it back around and just really reflect on why he is so honored.
Yeah,
Of course, they have the Roberto Clemente Award, like you said. Winners can wear the patch on the back of their hat. So if you ever do see Clayton Kershaw in the dugout or, on the mound and you see a Pirates 21 on the back of his hat, because he's a former winner, which I love, commemorate people who have done such great things. One of the best things I think Major League Baseball has done over the last decade or so, amongst not a lot of things, is along with Jackie Robinson Day, everyone wearing 42, they now have a Roberto Clemente Day, where everyone gets to wear the number 21, which is really cool. And for the vast Latin aspect and influence in the game of baseball, I think that's really important, and I think it's a really big deal, and I think it's a really great thing that they did as well.
yeah. I mean, how many players in any sport have an entire day dedicated to them when every player on the field or on the court is wearing that number?
Yeah, like
It's
those
a very
two guys
it's a
are the
very
ones that
short
deserve
list.
it. It is, and
Yeah,
those are the two that
exactly.
truly should have it. Yeah,
Exactly. He's absolutely iconic, both as a player and as a humanitarian. So as a safe card of the week, I really, really like Roberto Clemente. By the way, guys, if you ever want any access to the charts that we use, the graphs, as well as the tracking we do to be able to track the prices and the price movements of certain cards and know when is it time to invest, when is it not time to invest, we use the Market Movers website in order to do so. If you go to marketmovers.com and enter the code Hollywood, you will get 20% off of your Market Movers membership for the rest of your life, number one. You'll also get 2 weeks free at the beginning to see whether you like it or not. And I think odds are you're probably going to like it. But let's move to our high risk, high reward card of the week, and it's Pete Crow Armstrong. We talked about him yesterday on Hot Cards of the Week, but his 2024 Topps Chrome home field advantage in PSA 10 and PSA 9, these are the two cards that we talked about, this exact card yesterday. Pete Crow is on pace to hit 271 with 43 homers, over 120 RBIs, and nearly 60 stolen bases this year. So this guy's basically on pace to go 40-60. And we all know it's not going to happen, but kind of comes down to the same thing we asked yesterday. What if he goes 30-60? Or what if he goes 35-55, right? The major worry is obviously the walk rate and the chase rate. He doesn't walk a lot. So he's not the most patient hitter. He chases a lot. And what you have to remember with Pete Crow Armstrong is, and this is where a lot of people enjoy the being a five-tool player is the sexy thing to invest in and whatnot. But realistically, this dude is an unbelievable defender, like an unbelievable defender.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's always going to be the offense and the batting numbers that people really, really care about. Obviously, the teams are going to care about the defense a lot more than the people investing in his cards. But he's 100th percentile range in the outfield and 95th percentile in sprint speed. If he can keep his average above 250, 260 and go 30-50 or something along those lines, then yeah, I think this card does become high reward. I do not think it'll be $200 in a PSA 10 if he goes 30-50 and hits 260. I think it'll be way more than $200. But the high risk is that he's just not consistent at the plate yet with his approach. He's going to take his strikeouts. He's going to go through his cold spells. He's going to go through his hot spells. But he's just 23 years old. Yeah. And he does have blue hair, which matches his uniform. That's pretty cool. I mean, how can a guy with bright blue hair not be high risk, high reward?
Yeah, that is a risk to step out and do that. Sometimes he has stars also stenciled into his hair, which
also,
is super
an
fun.
LA guy from right around here. So
yep, went to Harvard Westlake, so he is really scrounging for pennies. Anyways, what we know about Pete Crow Armstrong will play elite defense, like top notch fielding, tracking, this, that, whatever. What we also know is the speed. Speed don't quit, even if you're average and even if the balls in play aren't going where you need them to go. So we know that. If you could guarantee me he'd be a 250 and above hitter, I would take it all day, truly. Because I think he'll have enough pop in spurts that it's going to hold. I'm a big fan of when Max Muncy is at his best, like the way he controls the strike zone and then wallops pitches. And when he's right, he's a 235 hitter. So there's a beauty and there's an art and there's an effectiveness to someone who doesn't hit for 270 and above average. But you talked about the chase rate. You talked about the swing and miss and the lack of walks. If you hit that lull, if you hit that valley and you're not walking, well then the steals will obviously dry up as well because you're just not going to be on the base paths. So I don't love that trend. Anyone can have a hot streak. But the great ones, and I think we talked about it last week, it's how you minimize your lows and how long they go. You're going to struggle. That's fine. You're a human playing 162 in like 180 days. But how long will that cold streak go, and what are the depths going to be? I think he'll have enough power for it to be sexy. I think he'll be on base enough to get the stolen bases. I know he'll have highlight reel catches that will keep him in the people's eyes or in their minds. But I don't know if when we circle back around in late summer, if he's actually going to be hitting enough to be having a huge impact. Like, will he be a middle of the order guy, or will he be a watch out just in case batting in the 7th or 8th hole, which I think is a big difference.
I don't think you can ever put a guy that's hitting 30 plus homers in the 7 or 8 hole. Unless you're, I guess unless you're the Dodgers and you're spending $400 million for your entire lineup. But
but if he's batting 7th, he probably won't have the at bats to hit 30 regardless.
I mean, he's on pace to be over 40. So
he is.
It's possible. And if Pete Crow Armstrong does go humor me like 30-60 this year or 30-50 this year, at 23 years old, the hobby is going to notice it, and these cards will go up in value. It's just, can he keep the pace up? That remains to be seen. But let's move to our undervalued cards plural this week. And this week we are jumping to the NFL. We haven't been in the NFL for quite some time, considering we are in the doldrums, absolute doldrums of the off season.
Post-draft,
Yeah, but we're going to talk this week about Jackson Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp, who of course make up the formidable dynamic new wide receiver duo in Seattle. We are going to look at Jackson Smith and Jigba's 2023 Prism Silver and Optic Hollows in PSA 10 condition. And we're going to look at Cooper Kupp's 2017 Prism Silver, as well as his Optic rated rookie in a PSA 10, both in PSA 10 conditions. JSN, the Prism Silver, is up 4% over the past year to $63. The Optic Hollow is up just 14% over the past year. That was interesting to me because over the past year, by the way, guys, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who was just a second-year receiver, kind of exploded onto the scene with 100 catches for over 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns. This guy, and this is with DK Metcalf on the team and Tyler Lockett, both of who are which now gone from the team. Jackson Smith and Jigba is an elite receiver. Like, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. He had one of the best, I think he had the best yard separation on routes run of virtually any receiver in football, which is pretty insane. And then on the other side of the ball, he's going to have Cooper Kupp, who of course is coming off of serious injuries and has not really been the same guy in terms of being, a crazy, 1,800 yards, 16 touchdowns a year type guy. Sure. But over the past year, Cooper Kupp's Silver Prism is down 45%, and it's just $50. That is less than Jackson Smith and Jigba. And his optic rated rookie is down 43% to $32. He played 12 games last year, had 710 yards receiving with 6 touchdowns. If you average that over a full season, it's around 1,000 yards and between 8 and 9 touchdowns. So it's still Pro Bowl level to go 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. That's still Pro Bowl level, right? And there's a couple big X factors here. Number one is going to be Sam Darnold, right? Yes. Who, of course, was just brought in this year. He will replace Geno Smith, who is now in Las Vegas, where Pete Carroll is also now in Las Vegas. The other big elephant in the room is going to be the Seahawks' interior offensive line, which was probably one of the worst offensive lines in all of football last year. And it comes down to a guy named Gray Zabel, who they drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. I think it was from like North Dakota State or something like that. But he is an interior guard, and he really, really needs to be able to protect Sam Darnold. I mean, we saw what happened when Sam Darnold got pressured up the middle the last couple games of the year last year. It was not pretty for Sam Darnold and the Vikings. So Zabel's going to have to figure it out and plug a hole in the middle. And if he can, I think Sam Darnold ends up in a scenario somewhat similar to where he was in Minnesota. You walk into an offense that has a very good running back. They have a very good running game. The offensive line needs to step it up. But you walk into an offense that has 2 absolutely elite receivers. They hired Clint Kubiak as the offensive coordinator, who's a balanced coordinator, but he is generally run first. And he does use an outside zone scheme with a lot of play action, which in theory... Like his dad. Yeah, like his dad, Gary. Which in theory should help them kind of cover up a little bit their interior weaknesses. That type of offense also tends to target the middle of the field with crossing routes, which... If you haven't been watching football or you haven't watched a lot of Cooper Kupp or Jackson Smith and Jigba, they are not huge guys. They thrive on those sort of routes. So look, for $50, $50 to $60 in PSA 10 condition for these two guys, I think the upside is quite high. I think we've now seen that Sam Darnold, given the right amount of protection, is actually a pretty darn good quarterback in the NFL. I mean, the dude threw for 4,300 yards and 35 touchdowns last year. Don't let the last 2 games fool you. If they can protect him, I think Cooper Kupp and Jackson Smith and Jigba could actually be in for a really, really big year. It's a winning team. It's a winning franchise. They know how to get to the playoffs. They know how to win in the playoffs. I know there's like no one left on that team that was in the playoffs all back then, but they've got obviously unbelievable home field advantage when they do play in Seattle.
They do.
Jackson Smith, look, at $50-$60 to me, that seems like a little bit of an undervalued flyer, and I think they're going to come down a little more over the next month, 2 months as we head into the summer. And then I think they'll start to tick up again as we head to the season, just as most cards normally do.
These are definitely 2 of the toughest receivers. And I don't mean like in terms of coverage, just in terms of like get in your grill and like contribute to an overall game. I think right there with, go figure, Puka Nacua. And like these are receivers who are tough in their routes. Kupp and Nacua especially will affect the running game. Like you can put them at the end of a line and they will throw their blocks. So I love that aspect, especially for both of these guys. Smith and Jigba is really tough. Like it's tough to stay with him because he will get physical with you, and the route running is elite, which you basically see from any receiver coming out of Ohio State these days. Olave, Maserati, Marvin.
Helps too that he plays. He really thrives out of the slot, which
For sure.
which is where Darnold really took advantage of Justin Jefferson, right?
And you sort of lead me to the next point of like that is the elephant in the room. Like JSN and Cup will get their opportunities because DK and Lockett are now gone. Like these are the new guys. It's a new era up there in the Pacific Northwest. Darnold was great for 17 weeks. And with probably the best receiving core in the league. You know, I haven't really thought about it, but it's great. And then he had
Probably
two
second.
flat out
I'd say Cincinnati is probably better.
Yeah, you're right. But like they're very effective. So
they're top five for sure.
But Darnold had some really bad moments, and it wasn't just protection. It was skittishness. It was holding the ball too long. It was just doing the things, winning plays for a QB other than throwing the ball and the stuff that we see in a highlight package. And I'll finish with this. I would probably take the flyer and Smith and Jigba regardless. Age, effectiveness, now opportunity. With Cooper Kupp, I'm going to go with the theory of other teams will tell you the market. For a guy who was truly a leader in that Rams locker room, for a guy who was Matthew Stafford's bestie, for a guy who I believe is creating a hole on their salary cap because they couldn't trade him and they had to flat out cut him, that tells me a lot. Like, no, they weren't expecting him to win the receiving triple crown again. But if they thought he had effectiveness left in there, they probably would have held on to the guy that was a core foundation of what the Rams are all about. And they not only were fine taking the cap hit, they were fine letting him sign within the division. To me, that speaks volumes. So I'll take the flyer on Smith and Jigba. Cooper Kupp, you better promise me he's going to play for at least 14, 15 games, and that's just probably not likely at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. But, I mean, the fact of the matter is Cooper Kupp is significantly cheaper than Jackson Smith and Jigba right now by over 14, you know, he's 14% less or something like that. And for a guy that, yes, everything you said is very true, but...
Thank you.
but it is still Cooper Kupp, and
he
did miss a lot of time the last couple of years, and he still was on pace to average over 1,000 yards and 8 to 10 touchdowns last year. So who knows what happens? But yes, it does come down a lot to what Sam Darnold does. If we get the Sam Darnold in the first 17 weeks of last season, then I think both of these players have like really big years. If we get the latter end Sam Darnold, then maybe Sam Darnold should have been high risk, high reward this week. Who knows? But moving on to our last card.
It relies on him for sure. Like, I trust those two guys, maybe not Kupp's body, but I trust what they'll do if they're on the field. The big redhead out of San Clemente, I don't know, man. I gave him every shot, and then the last two games were just...
And he rewarded a lot of people for 17 weeks last year.
He sure did.
He sure did. But let's move to our last card of the week, and that's our badass card of the week. And it is the 1991 Fleer Basketball Pro Visions insert set. Now, Pro Visions was an insert set in 91-92 Fleer Basketball wax packs. It consisted of 6 players in an artistic format. So they're artist depictions of the players. Kind of like, and they're not really anime looking, but they kind of have that cartoony anime look to them. And there's been so much hype lately on anime cards, or like people go crazy for the Bowman anime cards, right? People go crazy for the manga cards out of Panini. Michael Jordan, Karl Malone, Magic Johnson, David Robinson, Charles Barkley, and Patrick Ewing. Those were the 6 players you could have gotten out of this set. And all of the cards look really clean, like really, really clean, really cool, white background. They have good character to them. And honestly, completing the entire set in a PSA 10 is actually kind of cheap. You can get the entire set in a PSA 10, every single card in a PSA 10, for about $475. That's all 6 of them. The Jordan alone is $200.
That one's pretty cool.
And if you're looking at the pop count on these, they're all under 200, aside from Michael Jordan. Now, I'm sure there's hundreds of more 10s of the other players too, but people just don't really care to grade them because they don't necessarily have a ton of value. But the Michael Jordan one obviously is a classic. He's kind of like floating through space. Look, maybe, you know, we talked about the Upper Deck Looney Tunes card on Badass Cards of the Week maybe a couple months ago, and how it was kind of a launching point for Space Jam. I mean, this has Michael Jordan literally floating through space with like moons in the background as he's reaching out, trying to dunk. I mean,
yeah.
Who knows? Maybe this is kind of another predecessor to Space Jam. The Charles Barkley one, I think, is pretty funny. It kind of looks like he's in the intro for like 007 GoldenEye on Nintendo 64 in 1997 or something. Like he's walking and then turns and like shoots, you know. David Robinson shooting through the clouds. What else is new? The Admiral just towered over everyone. It's just, it's a very imaginative set. And this is kind of like, a case, not a case hit, but this is like a, I mean, it's an insert, right? But it feels like a case hit before foils and refractors and stuff like that. Because you couldn't hit parallels out of 1991 Fleer. So imagine if we had cards like this today. Well, actually, you don't have to imagine it. If we had cards like this today, it would be like the manga. It would be like the Bowman, it'd be like the Bowman anime. It would be a case hit. And so for that reason, and the fact that these are probably 6 of the greatest players of all time that all played in the same generation for the most part, I think this is a really cool set, and it's not expensive, honestly. You can get them raw. You don't need to have them graded. I think I have most of them. I actually opened a box of 91, 92 Fleer a few months ago, just for fun. You can buy these entire boxes for less than, I mean, these are not expensive boxes. They're really not. I don't remember what I paid for it. Maybe like $70 or $110 or something like that. But it's a fun rip. And I'm telling you, pulling these Pro Visions inserts out of the pack was always the most exciting. Yeah,
they're really fun. And I really like that David Robinson one through the clouds. The Michael Jordan one is just wacky. It's a good time. That truly is the precursor to Space Jam, trying to dunk through space. I think the baseball ones are really cool too. I don't know if you've seen them.
Yeah, no, they are.
Barry Bonds, his bat is smoking. There's a Bo Jackson one that, and if you don't look at the details, is really cool because it's just him with his arms crossed. But they've cut out his skin, and it's like he's a robot. That's so wacky. It's so different. Again, 90s nostalgia. And you said the players that you mentioned, the greats, and all of them, except for Magic, basically, all in that one era. None of them winning anything because of Jordan, except for maybe David Robertson. But yeah, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone especially didn't win anything because of NJ.
Yeah, but Malone and Stockton, like top 5 best NBA combos ever to not win a title?
I mean, of combos not to win a title, it's probably number 1. They're both first ballot Hall of Famers, and they won.
Yeah.
I'd have to think through it, but to me, they are the epitome of like the duos that couldn't do it. So, and it's because they had a big red Toro standing right in their way. At least 2 years, right? They won the Western Conference. 2, maybe 3. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to me, it's those two. I'd have to think a little bit deeper about it, but yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But that'll wrap things up for this week's episode of the Cardboard Critics Sports Card Podcast, home of the Invest in These Cards Now Cards of the Week. If you enjoy the channel, don't forget to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. I think over 75% of you guys that watch us are not subscribed. That kind of bums me out. So those are rookie numbers, guys. Let's pump those numbers up. And remember, if you ever want to get in touch with us, just leave a comment down below. We do respond as long as you're not being a dick, honestly. So until next time, I'm Mr. Hollywood. Over yonder, that's Joe Nasty. And we'll see you next time right back here at Hollywood Rips. The boys are out.